Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 30mm version of the MASON dump tank from VAPERGATE. So as you can see, it's a large 30mm RTA, kind of along the same lines as the Modfather and the VCST and the Beast that I've reviewed recently. So this will kind of bring an end to that group of tanks, and we'll kind of talk about them all and compare them once we get to the end of the video. So, I'll go on and start off by showing what the tank looks like. As you can see, it looks similar to the MASON RDA that came before it. It's got this kind of stylized thing at the top. It's the same as the MASON. And it's basically just a simple, well-made design. So, like this airflow, very refined and looks good and everything. It's machined very well. It uses a top fill method that's like the smoke tank, all smoke products pretty much. This kind of pivoting top fill where it pivots on this pin and fills through this port here. And I'm not a big fan of this top fill method, particularly on this tank, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. There's no juice flow control, and I'll go on and take it apart. And show you that it's basically WICK channels, sort of like the Griffin, except these function a little bit differently, and we'll talk about that when we get to the wicking. It's velocity style with a big airflow, huge build deck to fit all kinds of stuff. This is just an extra build that I had laying around. It's a 26 gauge and 0.5 framed staple, so not the best build out there. But I thought it would go good on this tank, so I decided to go on and use it. But it's a really big build, so it's a good test of wicking speed and build deck space and all of that kind of stuff. So it fits in there all right. I haven't tried this build on here yet. So let's go on and talk about wicking, which to me is the big thing with this tank. Real quick, I'll point out on the back, it says something about no leak wicking, and normally when I see stuff like that, that kind of tells me that it's going to be the opposite of that. So let's get into it, and we're going to be using cotton bacon. You want to have a nice snug fit on your cotton, which is what I have. And you'll also want to cut your legs pretty long. So if this was the Griffin, I would be cutting them as short as I possibly can to block that airflow. But on this, I tend to cut them right about where the juice inlets are. And I'm going to fluff it out just a little bit, not a lot, because I still want that cotton to be dense. And then we're just going to pack those channels fairly tightly. And now you just want to make sure that the holes are completely blocked, so you don't want to do air channels. And you also want to make sure that the cotton is not overhanging the airflow there. And now we're ready to add our juice. Okay, and from here we can put our top on. And I would strongly recommend against, if this tank is new or you just put a fresh build on there, don't fill it up all the way, because it'll dump an entire tank on you if you're not careful. So you want to make sure that your build and your wick is functioning as it should before you commit 10 milliliters, which is what the capacity is of juice to it, especially if you're using premium juice. That would get very costly very fast. So I'm not going to put a lot of juice in here. Okay, about there should be good. And one of the reasons why on this tank I have a problem with this top fill method. One, it's very prone to leaking on refill unless you just absolutely stuff the hell out of the cotton, and that can kind of compromise flavor a little bit. But more importantly than that, typically when I work on a build or whatever, I'll take this whole top section off, and this goes for any tank I'm speaking about. I'll take the top section off and I'll flip it upside down and leave the build deck on my mod and just have this section sitting on my table so the juice doesn't spill out. But on this, and this could be just this tank in particular, not all Mason dump tanks, just this one, but I don't know that for sure. But if I hold it upside down, this top section, set it on the table, the juice seeps out from this fill port and comes over and down the drip tip. So there's not a complete enough seal here for it to be kind of juice tight and not leak down the chimney. So if I was working on my build or something and I set it upside down, I'd end up losing the entire tank of juice down through the drip tip. And that happened to me more than once until I kind of figured out what was going on. And I don't really see a way around that. That's a big con for me on this tank. But like I said, that could be this tank in particular and not all Mason dump tanks. So I think we're ready to give it a try. I'm going to go up to about 110 because this is a kind of heavy duty build. All right, and let's give it a try. Flavor is good, but it's not great. I would say this is more of a cloud tank than a flavor tank. The vape is kind of similar to the Beast that I did a review on previously. I would say the flavor is better than the Beast. The flavor and overall performance is better than the Beast, but it's below the Modfather and the VCST. And really, I don't have anything bad to say about the machining or the way it looks and the vape off of it when it's working like it should. But for me, that leaking out the top and the wicking is my problem with this tank. So for me, the line between having it wicked well enough to get good flavor and leaking is super razor thin on this. There's no room for adjusting it. You either have it packed really tightly in there and it's not wicking fast enough, or it's going to leak. And there's been more than once when I've really had the cotton packed in there, like it felt like Q-tips on the end because the cotton was packed so hard in there. And I've left the tank, just leave it sitting on the table, come back in a couple hours, and it's just seeped 5 or 6 milliliters of juice down the side, and that takes forever to clean up. You have to take your mod apart because it got down in the batteries and all of that kind of stuff. And and so it's made me kind of leery of the wicking on this tank. I don't understand how, with it packed that tightly, it could be leaking. So it's not leaking right now, and I don't have the cotton packed in there super tight, but it makes me hesitant to just leave this tank alone because it's an unknown. I don't know if it's going to leak or not. It's stable right now, but I could leave and come back and it just decided to leak on me. The flavor and performance is good and everything, but when you're talking about that much juice, that gets to be a big deal for me, and particularly not being able to work on it without it leaking out the bottom here. It's got a couple leaking issues for me anyway. I've watched videos from the people that made this tank about wicking this, and from what I can tell, they tend to use 3.5 millimeter diameter regular coils, so they're working with more cotton than I do because I'm using 3 millimeter coils that are bigger than normal round wire. But to me, any RTA should be able to handle 3 millimeter diameter without there being leaking issues, and without having to just pack the hell out of the cotton and sacrifice flavor so that it doesn't leak. So in this case, it's like the tank wicks too quickly for its own good. Normally on RTAs, it's kind of the opposite problem. You're trying to get it to wick fast enough. But on this one, it's kind of that it wicks too fast sometimes. And that tends to be amplified as there's more juice. I'm guessing there's more weight there, just more volume of juice pushing down on that vacuum system. And that creates more of an issue with leaking than if you leave it about at this level. So I've only filled up the tank all the way a couple times, and I regretted it for one reason or another, based around leaking. But when it's working like it should, I have nothing bad to say about the flavor or performance. It is mainly a cloud tank to me. So if I was going to rank the flavor out of these 4 tanks, I would probably put this somewhere below the Modfather and the VCST and above the Beast. And that really comes down to more than just flavor if I'm thinking about it. It's kind of an all-around package thing. I would put the VCST at the top, the Modfather second, this third, and the Beast fourth. And that sort of changed from when I originally did the reviews on the VCST and the Modfather. Initially, I ranked the Modfather higher, but to me, the Modfather, I didn't have any issues with it, but I've talked to quite a few people that were kind of disappointed by it because they couldn't get it to work how they wanted to. And it's made me sort of appreciate the VCST more, how simple it is. It's super easy to wick, and it's never once leaked on me. You just put the cotton in there like you would an RDA, and it just works. And so working with all these different tanks has made me appreciate that a little bit more, and realize that kind of simple, perfect design is more ideal than something that you just have to mess with or worry about if it's going to leak. And that tends to be the case with all 3 of these other ones, this one and the Modfather and the Beast. I don't really get leaking on the Modfather, but it's something that I hear about repeatedly from people that have tried it. They just have some trouble getting it to be fine and not leak and have the flavor that they want and all that. So I really enjoy that tank, but if a lot of people are having problems with it, that says something about it. And I haven't talked to a lot of people that own this tank, so I don't know. All I have is my own experience and opinion on it, just from using it for a couple weeks now. So to me, if you're looking for a large capacity tank, you like the design on this, you like the way it looks, all that kind of stuff, it's a good choice. You just need to be aware of possible leaking issues, or be aware that you may have to work a little bit with the wicking, and that you probably won't be able to take this top section off, turn it upside down, set it on the table to work on your build, you'll have to take the juice out without leaking. At least that's the case for me. So this tank comes in two other versions from what I can tell, a 25mm and a 40. I have not tried those, so I'm not going to speak at all about them as far as how they wick or anything like that. This is solely based on this particular tank that I've reviewed. I have tried the other size version, at least one of the other size versions of the VCST, which is the 25mm version. And I have that right here. And I'm thinking about doing a review on this too, because it seems to me to be a fairly different tank overall in the way that it feels and performs, although the design is the same. So I think that kind of brings to it in this the kind of series about 4 30mm tanks that we've been looking at. Overall, if I just had to recommend one to people, all things considered, it would probably be the 30mm VCST. But there's nothing about all of these tanks that's so bad that I would say if someone liked something about it, they shouldn't buy it. It's just it's my opinion when it boils down to it, what I use the most and what I have the least problems with. So you kind of have to take what I'm saying and understand it's my opinion. I'm not trying to say these are bad tanks. It's just my experience with them that I'm trying to share with you. So that'll bring us to the end of this video about the 30mm version of the MASON dump tank from VAPERGATE. If you like this video on our channel, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments or send me an email. Thanks.